Welcome back to another episode of Unlocking the Paranormal, the podcast of the spooky, the weird, and the strange. I am your host, Carrie, and if this is your first time joining me, you are dropping into the middle of the spooky summer series, where summer adventures collide with the supernatural. Over the past few episodes, we have explored haunted hotels, cabins, unsettling vacation rentals, and honestly, some of the most mysterious encounters from across the globe. And as it turns out, some of the most beautiful destinations can hide the darkest stories. So, today we are going to continue that journey with another collection of chilling travel experiences. So, settle in and welcome to the next installment of the Spooky Summer series. Now, if you have not listened to last week's episode, I do encourage you to go listen, check it out. I would listen to that one first and then come back here to this episode because today I'm going to be sharing an update from last week's episode from the couple that believed that they were followed home by some not so friendly entities. Honestly, it was one of the most chilling stories I've ever heard, so you definitely don't want to miss it. But before I get into that update, I first have a story that was titled Startled by a Small Humanoid Creature. And this is what was shared. This happened about 8 years ago when I was 21 and working as a camp counselor for Camp Tommy in Fishkill, New York. The place is basically a bunch of cabins in the woods on top of a mountain, each cabin a half mile apart from the other. So you're pretty isolated in the woods. One night, about 1 a.m., I was sneaking off to meet my girlfriend. You're supposed to stay in your cabins after 10 p.m. I was cutting through some of the woods to get to her cabin. Suddenly, I heard rustling in the woods and stopped to investigate it. There are bears and other animals, so I was expecting something like that. Then, this 3 foot tall humanoid type thing suddenly jumps out of the bushes and looks directly at me. It's too dark for me to make out any of its features, other than that it was standing on 2 feet, had 2 arms, and basically looked just like a miniature person without any features. It looked solid black. If it had clothes on, I would have been able to notice that. I was curious at what it was, so I started walking towards it. But it got spooked. It bolted back into the woods. I'll never forget how mechanical it looked as it took off running. Its whole body basically shifted 90 degrees, like if someone was doing the robot dance, and it just took off. I have never seen anything on 2 legs run that quickly. So, I was pretty confused about what it was. I'm a pretty fast runner and a fit person in general, but this thing was on another level of fast. As much as I try to make sense of it, I still, to this day, have no idea what it was. It was very human, but too short to be a human. 3 feet tall is about accurate, and I don't know how a human could run that fast anyway. I have no idea, but it's always bugged me. Maybe one day I'll go back to try and find this creature again. That is the first story, and I am very curious what you guys think of this. I have never heard anything described like this before. Sure, I've heard of shadow figures, but I've never heard a story about a shadow figure that runs in a very mechanical fashion, let alone in the woods. The shadow figure stories that I am used to take place inside somewhere, not necessarily outside in the woods. So I definitely would be curious to hear if anybody has had anything similar to this experience. If so, you definitely need to share it. You can email it to me at unlockingtheparanormalpod@gmail.com, or you can call the hotline. Now, the phone number to the hotline will be in the show notes if you would prefer to share your story that way. Either way, this is a very bizarre story, and I really don't quite know what to make of it. But I do love that this person was curious enough and faced their fears enough to try to get a closer look. Typically, you hear stories where people just bolt, get so scared, and take off running. Okay, let's get into the update from the story that was shared on the last episode, where a couple believed that they were followed home by some not so friendly entities. Again, if you have not listened to that episode, I do actually encourage you to go listen to that episode first, then come back here to hear the update. So, this update was from the girlfriend. It was shared about 7 years ago. So, there has been quite a bit of time since this update was posted on Reddit. According to her, the activity never truly stopped. Over the course of several months, she tried everything she could think of to make it go away. She drove past the house. She burned sage, and even went as far as directly telling whatever it was to leave her alone. Despite all of that, the strange experiences continued. She stated that was still hearing something calling her name. The dark figure has also appeared 3 or 4 times since the previous update. While she can't remember every unsettling incident over the course of several months, a few experiences stand out. Now, mind you, this was shared 7 years ago, but she wrote that about 2 months ago, she was home alone at 1 o'clock in the afternoon watching Netflix. Suddenly, an incredibly loud bang slammed against her bedroom window. This wasn't a light tap or something brushing the glass. It sounded like a large hand striking the window with full force. The noise was so powerful that both she and her dog jumped. She immediately ran outside, taking her large German Shepherd with her, expecting to confront whatever or whoever had hit the window, but there was no one there. She lives in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by dirt roads and woods, and there simply wasn't enough time for someone to disappear without being seen. There wasn't another soul in sight. Terrified, she grabbed her dog, her keys, and left the house. As she drove away, a familiar feeling returned. The overwhelming sensation that someone was sitting in the back seat of the car behind her. She described it as a heavy, disturbing presence that felt impossible to ignore. Yet, every time she looked back, there was nothing there. A few hours later, she returned home to find everything exactly as she had left it. Nothing was missing and nothing appeared out of place. Then, a short time later, she had spent Sunday through Thursday at her boyfriend's house while his mother was away on vacation. Since he works the night shift, she was alone in the house from 7 p.m. until 7 a.m. She explained that the Sunday and Monday night passed without incident, but on Tuesday night, she couldn't shake an overwhelming sense of unease. She felt like she was constantly waiting for something to appear, to pop out and scare her. Then came Wednesday night. Around 11 or midnight, she walked down the hallway towards the kitchen to get a drink. As she passed the living room, she noticed what appeared to be someone sitting in the recliner, facing the kitchen. The only feature she could make out was what looked like a full head of white hair. Naturally, the sight terrified her. Still, because she was alone in the middle of the night, she tried to convince herself not to dwell on it. She told her boyfriend about it when he got home, but they eventually let it go, since it wasn't the first time she had seen something unexplained. Then, on Thursday night, at around the same time, she went into the kitchen for a snack. As she turned the corner, she saw it again, a tall, dark shadow figure. Rather than reacting to the shadow figure, she continued doing what she had come to do and deliberately gave it no attention. Even so, she didn't sleep that night and went back home the following day. Since then, the activity has quieted down and nothing major or significant has happened. But she explains that in the coming months, she and her boyfriend plan to visit a friend's house where a medium will be conducting tarot card readings. She hopes the medium might be able to sense or explain whatever it is that seems to have attached itself to her. I don't know about you, but if I saw a person sitting in the dark with long white hair that should not be in my home, I'm freaking out. There's no way to simply just ignore it. But the question remains, is she still being haunted? I don't know. That is the last update that was written on that thread. But I am honestly very curious if the activity is still going on or if whatever it was has finally left them both alone. And if you have your own stories that take place in Airbnbs, inns, hotels, cabins, or even while camping out in the woods, I would love to hear it. It is not too late to share your spooky story to be featured on an upcoming episode within the Spooky Summer series. You can do so again by emailing unlockingtheparanormalpod@gmail.com or by calling the hotline. The hotline phone number will be in the show notes. Now, you do get, I believe, about 2 or 3 minutes to share your story. If that is not enough time, simply call back and leave another voicemail. And those are the very quick short stories for today's spooky summer episode. Now, these episodes are meant to be mini episodes just to get you all through the summer until we reach the fall, where I will be sharing longer episodes on paranormal topics that I have researched. Now, maybe you're listening to these stories and thinking that there are perfectly rational explanations for the strange sounds, unsettling feelings, and maybe even some of these sightings. Ultimately, it's up to you to decide. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow and subscribe so you never miss a new deep dive into the paranormal and so you don't miss the next episode of the Spooky Summer series. And don't forget to check out my social media for additional creepy content. I am on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. And don't forget to share the podcast with friends, family, and your favorite coworkers. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. And as always, stay curious.